Welcome to the Wise and Happy Life podcast, where ancient wisdom meets modern science, and mindfulness, philosophy, and happiness practices blend with neuroscience, compassion, and common sense. Hosted by Bob Martin, meditation mentor, happiness coach, trial lawyer, and entrepreneur. This podcast explores how to live with grace, presence, and purpose in a complex world.
Hello, good people, and welcome to another episode of A Wise and Happy Life. And as you know, I always like to start off by setting a theme. And I have to start today with a little bit of a confession, because you've heard me talk about it, and I use the term in my teaching meditation, and you heard it from all kinds of people, this thing called an authentic self. And although when I conjure up those words, when I think about those words, I kind of think I understand what I'm saying, but in a certain way, there's a little mystery to it. I mean, is there really an authentic self, or is it just something that our mind creates? And if it is one, I mean, where does it reside? And so I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And the wonderful thing is that we have a guest today that can help us to really get into a deep conversation about what is the authentic self and how do we reconnect with it. And through reconnecting with it, reconnect with so much more, because we are so much more. So Kelly Waggoner, a clinical psychologist, clinical psychotherapist, a person who is delving in at the edges of psychotherapy, someone who has practiced the traditional things and found that maybe if we push the boundaries a little bit, we can get better results. And she has, and I'm so happy to have her on the show today. Kelly, say hi.
Hi, Bob. Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
So let's start off by talking a little bit about, how you came to want to be a psychologist to begin with, and, what your story and what your journey in being a psychologist has been like.
Oh, absolutely. So my path was winding, as I think many people will relate. I was actually in my early 20s working at a law firm, assisting on a case involving antidepressants. And my role at this law firm was to be our client liaison and talk to the people who were just lay people involved in this lawsuit. And what I realized was the thing I liked most about my role was having deep, meaningful conversations with the people we were helping. And it led me then to go to grad school and get my doctorate in clinical psychology. And I've actually been practicing for about 20 years now. In those couple of decades, a lot has changed, but it's been always my North Star is helping people uncover the truth of who they really are, and then have the courage cultivation to express that truth in the world.
Almost as if there are, two stages: first discovering and then expressing.
Absolutely.
So,
and sometimes they happen simultaneously, but we have to first know thyself to express thyself.
Right. So this whole area, is kind of a little bit of a mystery to me, because when we say, who they really are, well, someone might just say, well, I know who I am. I'm this guy who does this, and I'm defined by this and this, and I'm a wife, and I'm a husband, and I'm a father, and I'm this, and I'm that. And what are you talking about, who I really am? I know who I really am.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So I believe we all come into this world knowing exactly who we are. And then because of the families we're born into, expectations, both spoken and unspoken, conditioning, modeling that happens around us, both subtle and overt, we start to mold ourselves in subtle and extreme ways, a bit away from our true self. So our authentic self could be simply defined as the self that exists underneath all of our conditioning.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I use a metaphor of one of those old original black slate blackboards, right?
Mhm.
And when you
Yep.
make the first marks on them, they're nearly impossible to erase,
Right.
but then they erase and then eventually they just have a gray sheen. So like what you're saying is that blackboard was our original self and we covered up, so to speak,
Mhm.
with that chalky gray stuff.
Right, exactly, and so the metaphor to carry it forward would be in this process of becoming the authentic self. We're not creating an authentic
Uh-huh.
self. It's already there. We're uncovering. We're cleaning off those layers of silt to uncover the self that always was
hmm
underneath.
in pop psychology, which I was really taken to transactional analysis.
Mhm.
I really like that school of psychology because it seems to make things very practicable and understandable to the lay mind. But they talk about the child that you were still living in you, but that there's two. There's the natural child and the adapted child,
Right, right.
and that they still live in you. Do you?
I absolutely agree. I think kind of an interesting prompt for people to consider is the question, how do you think you would have expressed as a child if all of you was accepted? What
Ooh,
would have been
oh,
different
wait,
in
wait, wait,
your
wait, wait, wait.
childhood?
Say that again. Say that again.
How would you have expressed as a child if you knew all of you would be accepted?
Wow. I mean, looking back at those childhood years, it I don't I can't even wrap my head around that.
So what you can do, and what I suggest people listening
Uh-huh.
do, is create a writing prompt, a writing practice around this. Write the prompt at the top of the page.
Uh-huh.
How would I have expressed as a child if I knew at, at the core of my being that all of me would be accepted? And then set a timer for 7 minutes and engage in what's called stream of consciousness writing or automatic writing, and allow your pen to flow as quickly as it can, trying to almost outrun the thinking mind, paying no attention to grammar or punctuation, and write until that timer alarm goes off. And what you'll find, usually people around minute 3, 4, 5, this truth starts to be revealed. And it might not be, earth shattering, but these just knowings that were right there that now are coming through this automatic writing
Yeah.
practice. It's really interesting.
And I want to tell you that when you asked the question, it was like blank, like like a deer in the headlights. But then as you were continuing to talk and I continued to sit with it, I started to think, yeah, there were times. I was started getting little flashes of the moments when I felt alive, when I
Mm.
felt completely there, when I was happy, when um, yeah, without think. I mean, it's hard to even express, the sensation, but there are
I want to,
flashes that I can remember
right.
where I
That
felt completely accepted.
that word alive
Mm-hmm.
is your signal that you found it. Because
Uh-huh.
when we are in our authentic self, that is the quality. It doesn't necessarily mean we feel joy, we feel, because we might be authentic and feeling, firm or boundaried or unhappy about something.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a quality of aliveness
Mm-hmm.
that is our signal of authenticity.
Ah. Oh, I love that. I love that. The story of the Buddha, um, I mean, without getting into the whole story, he lived a great life of luxury, and then he had a great life of deprivation, and he couldn't figure out what worked, and so he decided that he would sit under the Bodhi tree until he figured it out. And then at some point, he figured it out and he started walking into town to give his first teaching. And he had a glow about him, as the legend goes. And somebody
Mhm.
stopped him and said, are you a god? And he goes, no. Are you a man? And he goes, I'm not sure anymore. Well, then what are you? And he said, I am awake.
Yeah. Yep. Synonym in
Alive,
this,
awake,
it's same,
same.
same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, this seems a little bit, spiritual. It seems a little bit uh, outside of the textbook. Am I right?
Yeah. We were not talking about this in grad school.
Okay. So what led you, a clinical psychologist trained classically, to
Mhm.
start to push the boundaries?
Yeah, thank you. So when I trained, and this was, a bit ago now, and I want to
20
leave
years.
space for the possibility that things have evolved, which I'm sure they have. The emphasis was so much on the mind, on understanding of uncovering the why and the what. So a very kind of rational approach in a way to moving somebody towards balance and health. When I started my practice, I was a quote unquote talk therapist. That's what we did. We sat, chaired a couch, looked each other in the eye, and talked. That was the method. And while people made progress through the method of understanding themselves and how they came to be and what was going on, it was not for everyone unlocking actual change. It was, what I would hear repeatedly is, I understand why I'm doing these things, but I can't stop doing it. They
Yeah.
saw the
Yeah.
pattern, they got the pattern, but their life wasn't really changing. Maybe the manifestation of that pattern was taking different forms,
Yeah,
but it was still
I
the
just,
same pattern.
I just want to stop there a second
Mhm,
and allow me and you and everyone to just reflect on that. What you said, people understand the pattern. They know that what they're doing is not helpful, yet they continue to do it. And somebody once said insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. But
mhm,
they're not insane. They're just really
mhm,
normal. And this is just a pattern that people engage in.
right, and
And
the
you,
words that
yeah.
come with it are stuck and, like, some version of unsatisfied.
Hmm.
Life on paper might look really good. I have a job, I have financial stability, I have a family, whatever it might be, but a sense of something being missing.
Mm.
There's kind of a flatness, or,
Hmm.
one of two things, a flatness or even an anxiety for some people. And so, where it led me to next on my path was digging into the body, somatic practices, because I thought, okay, we have to kind of take the understanding that exists in the mind and spiral or descend it down into the body so people can feel embodied change.
Hmm.
If they can take their understanding and bring it into their bodies, maybe they can start feeling real change. And that actually created progress for even more people that I was working with. So I started to see people being able to feel their intuitive knowing, feel in their body their yeses and their no, be able to make aligned decisions from a deeper knowing that existed beyond their mind. But even still, there
Hmm.
were limitations. And that then, and this, is a series of many, many kind of learnings for me personally. I had been a many years long meditator. And so I started bringing mindfulness based practices into my psychotherapy work. And so I started to see how I was not even intentionally, but beautifully weaving mind, body, and now you could say spirit or soul into the way I was working with people. And that really started to unlock change, growth, transformation. Was not, there's a lot of kind of in our zeitgeist right now, languaging around mind, body, spirit, integrative, holistic. But what does that really mean in practice?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, how can we really bring all three of those together in one place? And so that was my aim
Mm-hmm.
in weaving in all these different modalities. And from there, I started exploring the modality of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, because that method in and of itself tended to bring in mind, body, and spirit all at once.
All at once. Yeah. Well, before we get there, I just want to mention something that I read about a couple of years ago over here at Duke University. I'm in North Carolina, but Duke, they have a baby lab.
Mm.
And they do a lot of research with babies. Again, going back to the idea of who you really are and your authentic self and the child that you were born into. So they took babies, and I may be wrong on the age, but I think it was 3 to 8 months. I'm thinking, but it might have been, I might not be sure about that. But they did this experiment where they had a chest, and they had a yellow rabbit and a black rabbit, or a yellow rabbit and a white rabbit. And the yellow rabbit would come over and try to open the chest. And they had the yellow rabbit. Then they had a black and a white, maybe it wasn't black, red and a blue rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And the red rabbit would prevent the yellow rabbit from opening the chest and push it down. And the yellow rabbit would try to pick it up, and the red rabbit would push it down. Then they would also show the baby the yellow rabbit trying to open the chest and the blue rabbit helping the rabbit open the chest. And then they would present the red and the blue rabbit to the baby, and the baby, at some significant amount, I believe it was in the 80s, would choose the blue rabbit.
The pro-social rabbit.
The pro-social rabbit.
Yeah.
Even at that very young age, kind of really giving us an indication that who we are born at is good.
I know that in my bones.
Mm-hmm.
That's been one of the gifts of being a psychologist, is I know some of the people I've worked with over the years in the world appear as maybe problematic.
Yes. Sweet.
But when I get to be with them long enough that they start to peel back those protectors and get to see who they really are, every single time they're inherently good.
Mm-hmm.
The ways they're showing up in the world that is challenging is really just about their wounding.
Mm-hmm.
And I, one trick I mentor up and coming therapists. If they're having a hard time with one of their clients, I'll say, imagine them sitting across from you as their 3-year-old self, their 4-year-old self. That self wasn't bad. There was no, maybe they were challenging even then, but there's an innocence that we can connect to. This is disregarding the very, very, very small portion of our population that might actually have frontal lobe lesions and be sociopathic. Okay, I'm not talking about those people, but pretty much everyone we come into contact with is inherently good. But then things occur in their life and they grow those layers, those protective layers, and now maybe they look selfish or arrogant or whatever it might be. But underneath is that self that chose the pro-social bunny.
Mm. I'm just thinking, there is the word faith. This, I don't know why this just came to me, but the word faith. We kind of understand it in a religious context. Optimists certainly understand it into how they think things are going to, play out in their lives. But if we were to say to somebody, I know that committee in your head is constantly telling you that you're not this enough or that enough or pretty enough or thin enough or, smart enough or whatever. And But if you have faith that you are so much more than that, if you are this inherently good creature,
Mm-hmm.
um, it doesn't seem like people are willing to have that kind of faith about themselves. I mean, I could
I
believe
know.
in a supernatural being and angels and demons and all that and have faith that they exist, but to have faith that I am one of them
Right.
seems to be, hard for some folks to reach.
There's an idea that we have to see it to know it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this idea of mirroring, of, okay, let's just take it in the context of therapy, because that's the world I live in. I really do, by and large, love all of the people I work with.
Mm.
And I think one of the aspects of healing people encounter in a therapeutic relationship where there truly is care is they have mirrored back to them through the eyes of that caring other their goodness. And now that they can see it, they can believe it. They can feel it, they can believe it. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people unfortunately grow up with parents who are maybe at the very best distracted, and maybe on the more problematic end neglectful, or all the other things that can happen, and they don't really see mirrored back to them enough through their parents' eyes that care, that love, that delight. And they lose contact with their inherent goodness because it's not mirrored back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
There is a meditation that I use sparingly.
mm,
I find that it's powerful, and not being a trained psychologist, sometimes it's hard for me to know when something might be too intense.
mm,
So I use this sparingly when I'm sure. But it's called seeing yourself through the eyes of a loved one.
mm,
And the process is just to sit and imagine somebody who you are absolutely sure loves you unconditionally, or at least has your best interest in mind.
right.
And then to move over into their seat and look back at yourself and see yourself through their eyes.
Mm.
And I mean, people break into sobbing at how beautiful they are.
I teach meditation a couple times a week here. Can I steal that?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, sure.
And what I want to say is I hope you feel emboldened to use that less sparingly. The
Okay.
world really needs people seeing themselves through the eyes of love.
Mm-hmm.
And so much becomes possible when people glimpse it.
Yeah, I mean, just that question, did who do you know loves? Oh, my grandma loved me. She
Mm,
always loved me. She always had cookies for me. My grandma loved me. I said, can you see yourself through her eyes? But just to ask the question doesn't have the somatic, doesn't have
right,
that experiential
right,
thing,
right.
where you actually feel it. Um,
I feel it just even imagining the practice right now. Yeah, it changes my nervous system
mhm.
just imagining it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll write it up in a script and record it and send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite powerful. The other thing that I just recorded was a Tonglen
Mm,
meditation, breathing in the pain of another and breathing out
right,
healing.
right.
Um, that's a powerful one too.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So psychedelics.
From the love bubble to psychedelics. I like
Yeah.
that transition.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I did my fair share of mushrooms in the 70s,
Mhm.
and I did some acid. And my what I come away from with that experience is that it gives you, of course, in an illegal, unproctored, un un unmonitored way.
Mm,
We just it gives you a glimpse of the divine without any preparation for being
right.
able to accept it. and and then it goes away, and you're left like, huh? uh,
Gobsmacked. Yeah.
Gobsmacked, right, and unprepared, and
Right.
unable to um, create it without
Mm,
the drugs. So then,
right.
and so not particularly a good idea in retrospect. But
Mm,
I'm not regretful. I mean, I'm thankful for for what I experienced through that. And so when you use it in a proctored way like that, tell us about how that works and what it does for folks and the kind of progress they can make.
yeah. Yeah. I think what you're describing is having these big experiences that then you cannot integrate. You cannot take what
Correct.
you
That's the way to say it.
experienced
Yep.
and bring it into your life in a way that in your day to day you're feeling changed by that big experience. And
Correct.
that can definitely be the case with recreational use. And then sometimes people can, and it changes their lives, and but it definitely is a bit more of a game of Russian roulette when it's you're out in
Hmm.
the world and you don't know your dose, and you don't can't anticipate the environment you're going to be in.
Right. Right.
So the final chapter of this winding and exciting journey I've taken as a psychotherapist in all these different modalities I've learned and integrated over the years. The final frontier has been psychedelics, and the I'm in California. The only legal psychedelic in California as of this conversation is ketamine, which isn't actually considered a classical psychedelic, but for the case of this conversation, we'll just use that terminology. Um, the other main psychedelics being kind of uncovered in the research are psilocybin mushrooms, like you had experience with, and also MDMA, which has a lot of cultural misunderstanding, but it's really a beautiful medicine, especially working with people who have had a lot of trauma. So, what I discovered with training in psychedelics is it's a big tool. In my toolbox that I open, it's my biggest tool, and it's an exciting one to use, but it's not necessarily a tool that's going to resonate or be appropriate for everyone. And there's kind of a whole other conversation there about um, the rule outs for this work with people.
Hmm.
But it's a beautiful method because it quiets the thinking mind. And when we can soften and bypass the thinking mind, what comes to the surface is I'll put it in a big category of kind of truth, even though the truth can come out as very symbolic and we don't take everything that happens in psychedelic experiences as literal. It's our unconscious, our soul selves, all these aspects of ourselves that in ordinary consciousness we don't necessarily have access to. With intentional psychedelic use, we can now have access to a much, much, much larger spectrum of self. So I mean both the human self, the parts of us that we've repressed, the experiences that have gone unprocessed, as well as what you might want to call the soul self, the part of us that is kind of the self that we cultivate in a lot of meditation practices, the eternal self that is unchanging, infinite, um, and our divine self, if that languaging resonates with people. So when I discovered the way I found psychedelics was just through the research. I kept, through what I think is a series of synchronicities. It was like every journal that got delivered to my office, every book that somebody was recommending to me, every podcast, right? It was just like everything was research, research, research. And the numbers were staggering. There's kind of a unspoken thing in psychotherapy that and I say this with like, I still am a clinical psychologist. I still have a private practice. Our success rates are not as high as we would like them to be. And that's okay. It's still better than nothing by far, but they are nowhere near the rates of success that were being shown in the research with psychedelics. And numbers like 80% remission of symptoms 6 months past the medicine
Wow.
session, right? So these are numbers that in pure talk therapy or psychotropic medications, we're not getting
This
these
is
kind
off
of
the
numbers.
charts.
It is, and
Well,
that's
it's
what
not
pulled
off the
me
charts now because it literally is the chart.
in. It is, yeah. And it was a big leap for me. I'm a very kind of like I was a talk therapist, and yeah, I had somatic and mindfulness practices but this felt very edgy in a way, but I could not escape the research, and the research was astounding, the progress they were seeing. So I did a couple years of training. Like I said, the medicine I work with right now is ketamine because that is legal in California. If you go to Colorado or Oregon, you can sit with medicinal mushrooms. But yeah, it's amazing the change that I see with people over time. Even people who I had been working with in my private practice for years, when we started incorporating psychedelic assisted therapy, it catalyzed a rate of growth that was beyond anything I had seen before. And
Mhm.
and I want to say with, there's a lot of I think the quote unquote psychedelic renaissance is starting to get tempered a little. There's some, quieting of like this is going to change the world. But it really does create amazing change for many people. That being said, like anything, there's a spectrum of change that's possible. So
Mhm.
there can be kind of a hope that like, oh, I'll do this and then everything will be okay. The dosing session, the medicine session, what is also known as the journey work, is just one phase. Actually, what I believe is the most important phase in psychedelic assisted therapy is what happens after you've taken the psychedelic medicine.
And on that note, let me just say that our time is running out, but we are not done with Kelly Waggoner because we're going to talk about some amazing stuff that she's been able to experience through the integration of body, mind, and spirit. Sometimes assisted by the psychedelics, but sometimes just in allowing ourselves to engage in beauty and awe and create new narratives. So, this is the end of part one. We're not done with Kelly. Tune in to part two, and we're going to find some amazing things. We might even begin to explore our connection to spirit, to the divine. So, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kelly, for
Thank
your
you.
time, and we'll see you guys on the other side. Hey, hello, good people, and welcome to another episode of A Wise and Happy Life. And this is part two of our wonderful, wonderful episode with Kelly Waggoner, a clinical psychologist and an experimenter in pushing the boundaries and finding what really works in bringing about change and helping us reconnect with our authentic selves. So, when we finished up part one, we were talking about the use of ketamine, a
Mhm.
psychedelic drug, in a legal way, in a pragmatic way, in a way that's watched over. And Kelly has discovered that there is many levels that this works on and dimensions. And so we're going to get into that. And we're also going to get into beauty um, and awe and how that changes lives. So, Kelly, can we pick up where we left off?
Absolutely. Thank you,
All
Bob.
right, sure.
We were
So,
talking about, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, if
You
I
lead the
remind,
way.
so you had mentioned, to me at least, that what you find is that the use of this medicine actually helps people integrate these three spheres,
Right.
of their mind, body, and spirit. So let's go back there.
So when you make the choice to go into the realm of psychedelics, you never know what you're going to confront, but there are sort of three buckets of experience if we were going to really step back and generalize. People can have psychedelic experiences that are insight oriented. They have aha moments, revelations, connections, and that gets put in the mind bucket. In the body bucket, we have somatic experiences where maybe people are feeling in their bodies something they're not used to feeling, like peace, joy, connection.
Mm-hmm.
And they're imprinting, creating a body memory of a way of being that will now, on the back end of this experience, be easier to get back to because they've had the felt sense, the felt experience of it. In that body bucket is also having the thinking mind step aside so the body can do the processing of past experiences, past challenges, past traumas that have occurred, because so much of our processing really happens through our body, not our
Mm-hmm.
mind. And
Now
so, mhm,
in my meditation training, I remember being at a retreat. And at the retreat, we were talking about emotions. We were starting, we had gone through watching our thoughts, labeling our feelings, and then talking about this crazy thing called emotion. And the teaching that we received was that your emotion is a thought combined with a body sensation. So that if I were to say to you, Kelly, I love you, but I don't have this feeling of something in my chest, this constriction or the sensation, the body sensation, it's just an intellectual comment.
right,
And
right.
if I have the body sensation without the thought, I might think I have indigestion. Uh,
Right.
but when I have the two together, I have an emotion. Um, So I remember sitting on the cushion and getting all emotional, thinking that meditation was going to be the solution to the world. And I got up off the cushion and I went to the teacher's room and knocked on their door and went in there and told them how we have to get this out into the world right away. And I was all excited and emotional. And the teacher goes, "Oh, okay, Bob. Well, let me see. You're having some thoughts." And I go,
Mm.
"Yes." And she goes, "And you're having some body sensations." I go, "Yes." She goes, "Hmm." So I said, "You're having some thoughts and you're having some body sensation." Hmm. So I said, "Back on the cushion, huh?" She goes, "Yeah, back on the cushion." So it was helpful to be able to deconstruct what had been very powerful in driving
Mm,
me into those two components.
mm.
But I think what I'm hearing you say is that the somatic, the body sensation component alone, can be worked with independently.
Absolutely. I have a meditation I lead people through based on the work of Dan Siegel called Feel It to Heal It,
Mm-hmm.
where we invite the thinking mind to soften as much as it can, descend the energy, the awareness, attention down into the body, find somewhere in the body that's feeling something other than comfortable. Maybe it's feeling a buzzing, or it's feeling flat, or it's feeling whatever it is, a feeling in the body. And then just sit and breathe into that place in the body. And this is also, if you've heard of Jill Bolte Taylor, who wrote Stroke of Genius, this is based on her work that if we can stay with the feeling for
The
90
body
seconds, about
sensation.
just the body
Body
sensation,
sensation. Mm-hmm.
the felt sense,
Mm-hmm.
that it begins to soften
Mm.
the discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
And I really find that to be true, that so often we go the opposite, like, let me figure this out through the mind, and that will help the uncomfortable feeling in my body. It's like, no, let's first go into the body sensation, breathe with it, be with it. The key is not attaching any story to it for those 90 seconds. If we start to bring in, oh, I'm feeling this way because, or I know what this is, or this caused it, nothing's getting moved
How
through.
about I don't like this feeling?
That's a story. That's a mind
That's the
thought, right?
story.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just being with it And so, well, that's the same thing as having uncomfortable thoughts and just allowing them to be. Eventually, you
Mhm.
kind of get bored of them and they go away on their own.
Yep.
And you're saying that by staying with, because I hear that from my students a lot. I hear, oh, I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like the feeling of this. But
Right.
you're saying that if we can just stay with the feeling, like we stay with uncomfortable thoughts, it will soften.
Yeah, it's that resistance, right, that creates the suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. Okay, you don't have to like it. Let's just take that off the table for a moment.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Can you just go bring your focus and awareness to wherever in your body you're feeling it? And that can be confusing for people at first, so they might have to kind of guess. And
Yeah.
that's
Right.
okay. This is a
Right. Right.
practice.
Mm-hmm.
And just breathe into that place. And what happens is there's a lot of, I don't like it, has a lot of just fear. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like it because I don't know it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is. But when we go and actually are with it, just through our attention, our witnessing, the uncertain that, I don't know what it is starts to go away. All of a sudden, I know what it is. It's actually not that scary. It's just a sensation. It
Mm-hmm.
might bring some tears up. It might bring some heat up. It might bring up different sensations, as a ripple effect in the body. But
Mm-hmm.
it's typically after that period of time, people aren't saying, I didn't like it. They might be saying it was uncomfortable, but that resistance goes away.
In a, I use the term learning to tolerate the
Right.
suffering, but
Right.
it's deeper than that, I think.
It's growing. Again, this is in the work of Dan Siegel, who's just fantastic at taking these big concepts and making them really relatable. He calls it growing your zone of tolerance,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
when we can go be with something, if our zone of tolerance, if people are listening to this, they can imagine like the zone at which they can stay comfortable is maybe, 2 feet wide. But if you can go and be with more uncomfortable parts of yourself, all of a sudden that zone grows into 3, 4, 5 feet wide. You can have higher highs and stay connected to yourself, and lower lows and stay connected to yourself, because your zone of tolerance could also be called your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
grows. And all of a sudden life has more texture
Mm-hmm.
and color, because there's more zone of experiencing without you either at that upper end of your zone, you go into anxiety. At that lower end of your zone, you might go into like flattening or avoiding. Instead, you can stay really alive because your
Alive.
zone is bigger.
It's kind of there's these two children, who, one of them, if they fall, and I'm not talking 3 years old, I'm talking they're 12, 13, 14. If they fall and do a little skin of the knee, it's the end of the world, and their whole world has collapsed, and it's going to collapse, and they lose half a day
Right.
just in that. The other one will skin their knee and wipe it off and can't even get mom to put a Band-Aid on it because they want to go out and play.
Right.
So, because the pain is the same for both of them, it's the same hurt, the same, but one of them just has a tolerance for it and the other doesn't. And and what I'm hearing you say is that by increasing that zone of tolerance, you actually give yourself more life.
You do. Full
Mm,
stop. You give
mm,
yourself, like, that kid number 2 now has that many more hours in their day to
mm-hmm,
go be an experience.
mm-hmm,
Kid
mm-hmm,
number 1 is, also having a meaningful experience, but it doesn't have as much life vitality
mm-hmm.
experience in it.
Right. And they both build on each other,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. Yes.
One
Yes.
is increasing. There's somebody mentioned it. It's somebody else used the metaphor of a cup.
Mm,
You can, in terms of the intensity of emotion that you can tolerate, that if your cup is a teacup, you can't tolerate too much. But if it's a mug, you can put more in and grow your cup. grow your zone.
Yeah, I think I like that metaphor because it's touching into overwhelm. When we
Mm-hmm.
hit overwhelm or overspilling, that's
Mm-hmm.
when all of our sticky stuff happens. We go into our like more primitive defense mechanisms. We retreat, we get aggressive, we
Mm-hmm.
avoid, we shut down, whatever it is. So yeah, if that vessel, that cup can grow, what we can put into our life
Yeah.
just a lot more.
And what we put in our life matters.
Yes.
For those of you that are watching this on video, you can see that behind Kelly, there's a side of a room that has a rack, I would call it. And
It's a
on those are all
bookshelf.
these
Yeah.
cool looking things. So tell us, what you have discovered about creating the narratives of beauty, awe, and the like,
Mhm.
and how that works, in your practice.
Yeah, there's a metaphor of a garden and our attention being the water. If I'm putting my attention on the weeds, I'm watering the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
If I put my attention on the flowers, I'm watering and therefore growing the flowers. And so, as much as it is about having beautiful things, so on the shelf behind me, I have books that have changed my life. I have candles. I have um, iconography. I have crystals. I have art, things that I really think remind me of felt experiences. I can look at the spine of a book and remember how I felt inspired by those ideas, or I can look at the flame in the candle and be mesmerized for a moment. And by having these objects of beauty, they're reminding me to bring my awareness, my water, to beauty, to the things that I really want to grow. And so I feel inspiration. I feel, all these different things when I look at these
Mm-hmm.
objects. Now, the key is remembering to actually see them, not just look at them, but see them.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we have objects, they can also just kind of fade into the background. So, yeah, I think, there's a reason why nature is so impactful for humans when we really take it in.
Mm. When I sometimes there'll be a column that I'm interested in. At least I read the headline, and I start reading the column, and it's long, and I'm getting through it, and I kind of have gotten now. I haven't quite gotten everything that I wanted to get out of it, but now I'm starting to get impatient from the reading, and maybe I close it or stop it, or I don't finish it, or I don't give it the time that I initially had wanted to, because some sense of impatience comes up in me and the like. So, I think that many of us might do what you're describing, and then something interferes with it and says, well, I don't have the time to spend just
Right.
willy waggling around here looking at this beautiful thing. So what do you think that's all about? I mean,
Oh, there's so many layers. The first thing that's popping into my head, though, is like our culture is so programmed to be wary of stillness, of slowing down. Like we're all
hmm
on these treadmills and we don't want to get off because when you get off, it actually is kind of harder to get back on.
hmm yeah, yeah.
Um, and when we slow down, the other thing that happens is we can come into contact with stuff that we had actually sort of unconsciously been moving away from, running away from. And so I think there's just a cultural programming of pacing. We just don't slow down. When we have space now, we grab our phones and fill the space. It's just in our culture. And so there's like one side of like, we have to reprogram ourselves to remember space, to remember stillness, to remember presence.
Okay, let's go with that for a second.
Okay.
So how do we reprogram ourselves? Okay, let's take I'm sitting here, I'm looking at I'm looking at right up here. I'm looking at my gong,
Mm.
my little bowl here, and that happens. And I say, well, I have great memories of it, but now I'm starting to say I don't have time for this or something. What do I do? How do I reprogram myself?
So there's probably 1,000 books with different strategies, but again, I'll give you what's just coming to me in
Hmm.
in what we're talking about. We're talking really about reprogramming our nervous system.
Uh-huh.
Most of our nervous systems they're entrained to the pace of our culture, which is
Hmm.
very stimulating on all levels of the senses, right? What we see, what we
Hmm.
hear, what we feel, all of it is very, very full and busy. So we actually do, unfortunately, have to retrain ourselves to be present. It's like back in the day, let's say 300 years ago, there were no gyms because everybody was working their bodies in different ways with whatever it was they were doing in their day,
Right.
right? There were no meditation studios. People were just feeling the breeze on their skin, or they were tending to their land, or they were weaving a basket.
Hmm.
Mindfulness was built in to our
Hmm.
culture. It
Hmm.
is not anymore. We are not programmed to just be present with whatever is. And so a really easy way, and if people are not able to do this, look at your resistance because everyone can do this. When you see something beautiful, you taste something delicious, you hear something pleasing, take one breath of savoring. And I use that word intentionally because it's a tactile word.
Hmm.
Find 5 things in your day that you can savor. When you're on a walk, is there a flower that you can just take one breath and savor? For
Hmm.
me, it's always tea. I've got my mug of tea with me and I take a sip and I savor it. For you, it might be looking up at that beautiful gong, that beautiful bowl, and savoring the felt sense of what it conjures up in your body. So
Mm.
in the spirit of beauty, which is like, why are we here on earth? I mean, one of the reasons I think is to enjoy.
Hmm.
Like being human, we have all these senses. Why do we have all these senses? Why do we have all these nerve endings in our tongue, in our hands, in our feet? It's like to feel, to sense, to touch, right? All these things, to taste. Let's savor this human experience. And by doing so, we're building into our nervous system a different pacing.
Yeah. It's there's an old Zen saying that says that you should meditate for 15 minutes a day, unless you don't have time to meditate for 15 minutes a day. Then you should meditate for an hour a day.
Yep, I had a feeling that's where it was going. Yeah.
Because we just don't realize that we actually do have 15 minutes a day.
Yeah,
It's
and
funny when
I'm taking it even smaller is 5 breaths.
5
That's
moments.
it. 5 moments of savoring.
Hmm. Hmm. I know it's funny. I might be talking to person A about meditation, and person B overhears it. And they, oh, I need that. That's what I need in my life. I'm so stressed out and everything else. And I say, well, do you have 10 minutes a day to practice? Oh, no, I don't think so. Well, you could get up 10 minutes earlier. Oh, I would never do that. And I think about it. Here is something that is doesn't cost anything. You don't have to go out of your house. Isn't physically challenging. Doesn't require any special equipment. All you need to do is sit
Right.
or walk and just be present. And the culture, tells us it's just not a priority.
No, the culture tells us fill it.
Fill
Fill
it,
the space, fill the
fill it.
time.
I there's a couplet in the Tao Te Ching, which the Tao Te Ching is the seminal book of Taoism. I'm just saying that for your audience, and it translates to mean the classical book of the way of virtue. And it's 81 little poems, but the very first poem has a couplet in it, that goes, caught in desire, you only see the manifestation. Free from desire, you see the mystery. And that was always a little bit enigmatic to me. But just the other day, I was sitting on the back porch with my wife, and she's a landscape designer. And so we have all of the extra leftover landscaping materials that she had from all her jobs are in our garden. It's a gorgeous garden.
Mm.
And I was sitting there just seeing it and being it and feeling connected to it and hearing the birds. And then all of a sudden I looked at a bird feeder and I was disconnected because the bird feeder needed to be filled. And all of a
Right.
sudden I got what the couplet meant. It
Right.
meant when I had something to do, which I'm not saying that's not important, that you shouldn't do that,
Mhm.
because we have to do stuff
We do.
and things have to get done. So when I feel like I have to do it, then I'm in my do mode. But when the moment before that, when it was all just one thing, all interconnected, just, in its natural state, I was in the be mode. I was
Right.
being with it. And then I
Right.
was in the do mode, both being important,
Right.
but it was at that moment that I really felt the shift. And it feels
Right.
very, very different,
Right.
just to
So
be
for
with this.
you, it might be bringing, the saying, going from human beings to human doings, bringing your human beingness to your
Mm.
human doingness and
Uh-huh.
integrating the two.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Now that's why they call them who live in the Shaolin Temple masters.
Mm.
Is- that's I don't know, that would be a challenge to bring that sensation of being into the act of doing.
There's a technique
Mm,
in Vipassana meditation training where you choose a mindful moment. For example, washing your hair, doing the dishes, where you bring all of your senses to the doing. So if
mhm.
we're going to
Oh,
take
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the mindful
Watching
moment of
the
washing
mindful
your
moment.
hands, yeah, you're
I
like,
get you.
you're in the sensation of the temperature of water, the
Mhm,
smell of the soap, the sound of the stream. And by bringing that kind of awareness to the doing, it becomes being.
mhm. No, I get
And
that
I
because
love those techniques where it's like, we
mhm.
don't have to necessarily be on the cushion.
Right,
We
right.
can be
No,
doing the dishes and have this presence with
and
it.
when in my teaching, I always ask my students to choose something every day to do mindfully, something different, something that normally they do mindlessly,
Hmm.
while their mind's, going a million miles an hour. To just make the bed, wash the dishes. And my favorite thing to do mindfully is taking a shower.
It's the best. That's
Oh,
mine too.
take a
That's always
shower.
mine. Because it has so many pleasurable
Oh
sensations.
my, yes.
Yeah.
The warm water, the soap, it's really quite sensual, even if you're
Yes.
alone. I mean,
Yes.
I don't
Maybe
mean
especially if you are.
especially.
Yeah, and I think there's a misconception about these practices around mindfulness and meditation that they're transcending the human,
Hmm.
right? We're getting
Right.
beyond.
Hmm.
But it's like, oh, like let's descend mindfulness into the body, into the
Hmm.
senses and awaken that way as well. And I think it's sort of the feminine approach to mindfulness is really this, what we're talking about, beauty and awe and pleasure and sensuality and the mindfulness that we can bring to being human
Hmm.
in that way.
Oh, sweet. So I want to take you to another level, a spiritual level,
Mm,
because all of these things kind of border on a sense of connection to something so much bigger than ourselves,
right.
which I don't know, even that may be a misnomer, in terms of the divine because how can it be bigger than ourselves if we are it?
Drops in the ocean. When the drop leaves the
It's the
ocean for
ocean.
a moment, you can see the drop, but
Drop.
it's the ocean's made up of all those drops, and yet it's the ocean.
And yet it's the ocean. And yeah, so um, you have ventured into this area quite deeply. Tell us, you know, what your practice has taught you about the connection of folks to the divine and what
Yeah.
that process. I'm not sure what I'm asking you, but I think you know what the answer is.
I think we're speaking telepathically right now.
Okay.
I'm kidding. Um, yeah. So the third bucket we were starting to talk about in psychedelic work
Hmm.
is spirit,
Hmm.
spiritual self, soul self. Um, like I said, for many years, I was a meditator. It feels weird even saying that.
Hmm.
I'm just a person who sits and gets quiet and
Hmm.
breathes and comes into the present. And in that, I learned through direct experience that there is so much more than I can be aware of through my normal, ordinary consciousness. There'd be states I'd drop into in meditation where I could feel in my body oneness, interconnection. And it doesn't matter what that oneness is, it just was a felt sense. And what I'm really here to share is spirituality when it's I'm going to take that was about to be a judgment. I'm going to say it differently. There is so much to be learned about our spiritual selves through direct experience,
Hmm.
unmediated by doctrine or dogma. And that's something that the practice of meditation can show people. But in many, many years of suggesting meditation to people, I see that they pretty much never do it for very long, right? That's okay. And then there's this tool now we have psychedelics that catalyzes spiritual growth for some people because, like we are talking about, it bypasses the thinking mind that wants to understand and it brings into the direct experience the knowing of the mystery of what we that we're just seeing and knowing such a small percentage of what's actually here. And so for me, two methods, two paths to my spiritual self were meditation and then my own intentional psychedelic work, where I got to directly experience my unique spiritual self. It's going to be different for everyone. So when I'm working with clients in ketamine, what can happen, not all the time, but can happen, is people have a direct experience of something spiritual. It might be their higher selves, their soul selves, their true selves. It might be an experience of oneness, of universal intelligence, of interconnectivity. But what I love about it is I'm not telling them what is. They're having the direct experience themselves and determining for themselves what is. And so we're taking the experience of the divine sort of out of religion, which is, I don't want to say it's all problematic, but what I do find issue with is being told what your spiritual self is. There's something so much deeper about experiencing our spiritual selves.
You
And
know,
so that's the
and that's not something that I don't know that there's anybody that has not experienced that. The only thing is that we often experience it in little flashing moments that
Mhm.
we kind of shrug our shoulders about afterwards and leave behind. Sitting on a mountaintop watching a beautiful
Right,
sunset, you just forget you exist. Just for a
right,
moment, you're caught up in it, and all of a sudden you are the sunset. You're just pulled
right.
into it and you're there. And then the sun goes down and you go, "Oh, that was really nice." And we walk off, and they're doing some research at the Greater Good Science Center about awe, and
Mm.
they're finding that they're comparing awe to the positive mirror of PTSD,
Hmm.
in that it is something that changes your neural system immediately. But because of our negative bias and the fact that our survival and protection is such much stronger,
Right.
PTSD is much more intense and much more changing, whereas the sense of awe really needs to be nurtured.
And
So,
that's what we're talking about in these, like, practices, right? These
mhm,
day-to-day of really being with something beautiful,
mhm, mhm,
right? Like, the
mhm.
awe of having clean running water,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
Like, you're right, we have to nurture it. It's not just built in to our culture.
Mhm,
I'm being reminded right now of when, space technology was such that we could go up into space and we got back images of Earth for the first time,
mhm.
and how for so many people, they had the most intense experience of awe to see our planet from afar and to see how small we
Yeah,
actually
I'm
are
feeling
on
it
it,
now, just as you
right? You
described
can
it,
picture
right?
that
Yeah,
first image we got back,
yeah.
and it's like, oh, like, that was such a big collective moment of awe that, I mean, it's just so sacred, and so awe, I would say awe is spirituality. It's
Mhm,
connecting us to something bigger. It doesn't need to be, this big complicated thing. It's a felt sense.
yeah. So there's so much more we could talk about, but time. They remember the Chambers brother. Time is on my
Time
side.
is
No,
on
I,
the side. It is. And
it is.
it's time's an illusion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So, Kelly, if some of the folks that have been listening to you want to get in touch with you, is there anything that you can offer them? Any further
Yeah.
information? And do you have some programs? And what have you come up with that will help people continue to move forward on that path?
So I co-own a brick and mortar center called Wellspring 88 in Redondo Beach, California, which is a true integrative wellness center where we have meditation, breath work, qigong, yoga, and then we also have deeper dive programs. We have ceremonies tied to the seasons. We have circles. We have group gatherings. So if anyone's ever in the South Bay of California, we'd love you to stop in. It's really a special place. I don't really see clients too much anymore as far as new clients, because I'm doing a lot of other things. But what we're going to release in January 2026 is a series of recorded meditations that are blending psychology and spirituality into having meditation journeys. So
Hmm.
our website is Wellspring 88, just the numbers 88.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Wellspring 88 Collective and keep in the know about our digital offerings that are going to start becoming available in the new year.
Well, how about coming back in the new year and talking about them?
I would love that.
I would love for you to come.
Yeah.
So, thanks everybody for listening. Kelly, thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for your heart, for your love, for your caring. Um, it's just been an honor.
Thank you, Bob. I feel the same.
Be well, and everybody, be happy.